Oh, holy cow. My guest today has presented in some of the world's most successful organizations, including Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, Walmart, Caterpillar. I mean, that's just to name a few. He's an Amazon #1 best-selling author, and he's spoken in 5 continents, been featured in Forbes magazine and Inc. magazine. He's also a former professional stand-up comedian and a former Fortune 500 leader who's developed and marketed products that are still being sold in 30 countries. If you're looking to learn how to be a better speaker, how to get more gigs, how to find your future and success in speaking, boy, Garrison Wynn is the guy you need to hear, and this is your podcast. Let's go. Hey, I'm Steve Sapato on the Know, Like, and Trust podcast, and we already introduced him, and here he is, the amazing Garrison Wynn, who travels the world, who speaks all the time. He's been speaking for over 30 years for companies that you and I can only dream of speaking for. And so, hey, Garrison, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Steve?
I'm really good, too. Hey, where's home for you, by the way? I don't think I know that.
I live in Houston. I've had a house in Florida. I sold it, so now I'm in Houston. But I've really been here since '88. So I grew up in Florida, but I've been here for a long time.
Yeah, see, and I moved to Florida. So I was
There you go.
60 years old when I got tired of Illinois and all the ice and all the snow, and I went,
Wow.
I'm leaving. And I
Well,
spent 2 years.
that happens. If people
Yeah.
just move to Florida, that's where Florida is where old people go to visit their parents. So that's
What do you think he meant by that? Is that a slam on me? I think it was.
I love to go to Fort Myers because people come up to me and go, "Excuse me, young man, young man." I'm like, "What are you talking to?" So I feel good when I go to Fort Myers, because I'm young.
That's exactly it too, and I'm
Yeah.
75 years old and people still look at me and go, "Hey, thanks a lot for helping me." And I go, "Well, everybody should be helping everybody, right?" But yeah, that's not how
Right, right. Well, I'll be 64 in July, and the thing is that I've gone to a couple of resorts in Florida where the entire staff was in their 70s. I mean, the entire. As a matter of fact, the guy was going to help with my bag. I'm like, I got it, dude, because he was like 80. I'm trying to, I'm like, I can handle it, sir. Anyway,
That's it. I had to go in. I'm doing a stress test, for the heart
right,
doctor type thing,
right,
just
right,
general
right.
checkup. And I was sitting in the office and I'm looking at all the people come in and I went, gosh, I hope all those people are in their 80s, because they just look so old. I'm like, well,
I
we got
know,
to
I
look in
know,
the
I
mirror
know.
a little more too. That's one of those.
Yeah,
So
that
Garrison,
happens. That happens to me all the time. So
yeah, Garrison, I have you on because there's so
sure,
many. A lot of my people who listen to this are speakers or small business
right,
people who don't
right,
know that they need to be speakers. Because somebody will say, "Well, I've got a message and I want to share it with a lot of people," and they'll say 10 or 100,000 people or something. And I'll go, "So do you want to be a speaker?" And they go, "No." I go, well, how else do you hope to share that message? But tell us about
great,
your journey. And I know you started off as a comedian, but you really managed to make it a full-time career for 30 years of being a speaker.
right. Well, I mean, I started off many ways, meaning that I was out of college. I was a business person, and I got lucky. I walked into doing an open mic and was earning a living 9 months later. That's rare. That doesn't happen. That's just luck. Sometimes you're just lucky.
Well,
Um,
luck and skill. A lot of us have walked into that same microphone and they said, "Hey, thanks
but,
a lot. See ya." So,
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think I had the ability and I had the opportunity, but I think the way it lined up.
yeah.
But I also got lucky because while I was doing open mics, someone who was famous had the person that was middling for them, their middle whatever couldn't make it, screwed up, and so I kind of got the gig that way. So right place, right time is true. Um, and then I did stand up for a while, and then I went to corporate America. I had the same thing happen. My boss quit. I got his job, so I ended up being a 27-year-old Fortune 500 VP by accident.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I think I'm as lucky as I am good. I did that, and then went back into stand up later, actually in the '90s, and then started this business in 1995. When I get asked a lot, how did I become a speaker? I usually say just lack of other skills. Really, I just lack a lot of other skills. That's the main reason. But I think my journey was lucky, but I also believe that action and adaptability create opportunity. I mean, are you prepared enough that when luck shows up, something will happen? That's what I think. So.
And that's what it is. How are your skills? If you're listening to this, how are your skills in public speaking? Now, a lot of people say, I don't want to be a public speaker. I go, great. Then how are your skills at speaking in public? Because that's
Right,
also part of it. Garrison didn't get that job because he was a fadoop. He didn't go, I don't, let me. He
right.
was obviously talented in his communication skills. So he got moved into the VP project, or he got, asked to participate here because
Well,
of his skills.
what you said something important. The truth is, I got that job. My boss screwed up, and he liked to play his cards close to the vest. So he thought withholding information made him powerful.
Yeah.
But I was willing to tell all. And so when the corporate guys came down to talk to him, he wouldn't say much. They asked me, I said everything. I was clear, relatively concise. I answered all their questions. And I was good at explaining why something was valuable and why something wasn't valuable. So being able to clearly explain the value of something and do that concisely, I think is a powerful thing, for
It
sure.
really is a powerful thing. And when we take that, Garrison, a lot of people say, well, I do that and I do this. But so tell us, how do you keep getting jobs? What do you do? What's the secret to new people getting their first gig or maintaining
Right.
the gigs and keeping them coming?
Well, so there are interesting answers offered by a lot of people who are in the business of helping speakers become speakers, and those are interesting answers. I'm very careful not to critique those answers too much, but they are largely untrue because the first thing is you have to have one of two things or both things. You either have to be very good in front of an audience, that you're so gifted, that you're so good at making a connection with the audience, that even though you're not well known or don't have a lot happening, people will choose you to be the speaker. Or you've got to be well known because you did something that made you famous enough or in some kind of position where they'll allow you to be the speaker even though you're not that good. You got to be one of those two things. That is the truth. A lot of people simply aren't really very good. They don't connect to the audience. They don't really make that connection. So step one, get good. Hone your skills. Get up in front of any audience that you can't. Speak for free. Do anything you can to get good, because I see a lot of people that struggle, and then you see them speak and they're not very good. They just
Yeah.
don't. They're not good at holding the audience's attention, and they think that being smart and having a superior idea is the key, and that is massively untrue. It's how you deliver a message. Can you hold the audience's attention? Are they willing to listen to what you have to say? In other words, can you create a willingness to listen? That something you're doing makes people want to hear what you have to say. So that's what I
That's
think.
really critical. Garrison, I do a thing called storytizing. I go, a lot of people, and for a decade now, storytelling has been everybody, teaching people how to be great storytellers. And I go, I've met a whole lot of boring storytellers. I've met a whole lot of boring people who tell their origin story. And so
Right,
I've taken this storytizing and I said, you take your story and you have to blend it with the audience's information. So I say,
right,
you take your story, you get their information. So you use their memories, their emotions, and their experiences in your talk. And people go, well, how do you do that? I go, well, that's what you have to learn to do, because that's what makes you interesting. I've seen far too
right,
many presenters who are just, this is the information, and they don't know they're boring. So the other part of that is,
right,
well, Garrison says, get in front of people. I want you folks to understand that record yourself, get in front of people and record yourself, then watch
right.
it back critically to see what you can
Sure.
improve upon, right, Garrison?
I agree with that. But also, you have to read the room and know the audience's reaction. I'm sorry, my cameras fuzz. The more expensive my cameras become, the more they fuzz. The cheap
Yeah.
ones didn't do that. Cheap cameras work every day.
All the
Anyway,
time.
every day, all the time. But the thing is that that's what you're saying is very, very true. But you got to read the room. Are you connecting? You can feel a connection.
Oh,
If
yes.
you can't feel the connection, it'll be very difficult to keep connecting. So, what does it feel like? Can you feel that people are paying attention? Can you see that they're paying attention? Are you able to hold their attention? So I think that looking at yourself on camera is great, but I judge what the audience is doing.
Oh,
What I
yeah.
do.
But most
I'm
people,
watching them.
but as coming from, I've been watching speakers for a long time. I'm like
Right,
you. I've been in the business for over 30 years. And when I
right,
watch most presenters, they have no idea that their audience is disconnected. I always say it's like talking to that one
right,
person who comes up to you at a cocktail party and they tell themselves about tell about their stories. They're talking to you about themselves. They're telling you what's happened to them, and you're bored to death, and you're actually looking away, and they're 2 feet from you and can't tell that you're not
Well,
engaged with their conversation.
thank you for saying that. But if you can't tell that, I don't know how you can be successful. It's like
Yeah,
driving a car when you can't look out the window. If I can't look out the window of the car, I don't know where I'm going. I'm not going to be a good driver. I'm not going to get to my destination. I can't see out the window. If I can't look at the audience and read them, because what happens sometimes, I've been doing this a long time. Sometimes you'll have a difficult audience. I got a room full of engineers,
oh,
I got a room full of physicians,
oh,
I got a room full of college professors. Okay, they're the worst. Anyway, but so I've got to, there's a point at which I know I can move forward and I've got to feel them out. And some things work a certain way, some things don't. I've noticed that if an audience isn't really energetic, that I can go deeper into content and offer more data, and they'll respond to that because they're not really responding to a great story. I found out that if you add one little too much data, one too many statistics, you better get funny and have a good story. But you can feel that's how they are.
yeah.
So I just think being able to feel out the audience is important.
And it is critical to that comes with experience. That comes with everything you've done. So, like Garrison said, if you want to start off with free speaking, I tell people all the time. The first 2 years
Right.
I was speaking was I spoke for food. If somebody would pay me a dinner
Right.
to come talk for 20 minutes, I was there. And for almost 2 years, that's what I did. And then somebody said, "Hey, how much do you charge?" And I was like, "Charge?" Right? And I went, "How about $50?" Now you got to remember this is
Right.
almost 50 years ago, right? And I went, "How about $50?" And they went, "Okay." And then as you grew, I even I was charging $5,000 at one point early in the career, right? And
Right.
I had
Right.
somebody in my hometown call me up and say, "I heard they were doing a big event. They were going to have 10,000 people in their stadium thing, and
Right.
they
Right.
said, 'We heard you were really good. How much is your fee?'" And I was like, "Boy, it's close to home. I don't have to do any traveling." So I said, "I'm going to reduce my fee." So I said, "It's only going to be $2,000 if you do it right here at home." And they went, $2,000. I went, I know, I should be charging more, but please don't hold that against me because you know how that backfires on you, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Right.
And they went, nobody in their right mind would ever pay somebody to $2,000 to speak. And I was like,
Right.
you thought that was a lot? Oh,
Oh right. Oh yeah.
yeah. And there's some
We,
people who just have no knowledge of what it takes, right?
we get that today. We get requests that come in and they lose their minds on the fee. I mean, it's interesting. It's like, I don't know what you thought this thing cost. We have people come to us with budget. I can't name any names. What really is interesting to me is the Fortune 50 companies that come up with that without enough money. Then the National Association of Nobody has all the money.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
that's
Yeah.
it. So,
That's really interesting.
yeah, so let me ask this. You do a speaking gig and then like do you ask them for referrals? How do you get your next speaking gig? What precipitates your continuation? Because again, I watch you on social media and I love
Yeah.
that you post your topics and you show your people and who you spoke to, and that's really cool because I'm sure they love it
Yeah.
too, right?
Well, that's how I get a lot of speaking engagements. I say so there's two things people tell you: how they started, which they almost never tell you; how they really became successful. People don't say that very much. And then what you're doing now. So I'll give the typical what you're doing now, but I'm going to go back to how it really started. What I'm doing now is I'm posting, hey, thank you to Joanne for having me at the whatever conference it is. And I show a picture of me, maybe the audience, maybe the client, whatever. And I do that all over social media. That's proof I'm speaking. So I'm not just telling you that you should book me. Matter of fact, I'm not saying you should book me at all. Don't book me. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm in Orlando today speaking for this company. I'm in California and LA speaking here. I am in Dallas speaking here. So they're just seeing me do it. So it's proof that I'm actually doing it. These days, I still do 75 events in a year, 70 events, 75. I used to do 100 something back in the day. So that's what I do now. I'm doing it. Proof that I'm doing it. I'm all over the internet because I've been doing this since, I've been doing this since with Google since 1997. They were called Back Rub, by the way. Larry, I got a great story with Google. I picked a marketing company called Backrub because Ask Jeeves was too weird. So I go with Backrub. Larry's a nice guy. 6 months later, I get an email from Larry. We're changing the name of the company. We're going to call it Google. I said, Larry, it's a terrible name. That's what I told Larry Page. True story. Anyway, so I've been doing this a long time. So the thing is that today I put myself out there. So you'll never ever see me say, hire me. You'll never see me, hey, you should book me. If you're looking for a speaker, you'll never ever see me ever say that. I never say that. I say, I'm in Orlando, I'm in Dallas, I'm in Denver, here I am. That's what I'm doing. So if they're looking for a speaker, here's one who's actually speaking right now, not telling you that you should hire them or telling you how good they are, but I'm just doing it. That's what I do now. That's very effective. Speakers Bureau, I work with about 30 speakers bureaus. About 25% of my business is bureau. Of the 30 bureaus we work with, I'm probably 8 of them. I'm their best boy in the fee range, which means we get a lot of stuff. And the truth is we've got agents we've worked with. Bureaus are one thing, but specific agents. We've got some bureaus who work with 4 agents. Some we work with 1 agent. We've got a bureau we worked with for 25 years. We're still on the same damn agent. Now we got 8 agents over here. So it depends on, you're not everybody's cup of tea. You're not everybody's favorite flavor, is the truth. So that's what's happening now. And I don't write a ton of articles anymore. I got another book deal coming in, but I'm not crazy about writing books. I've been lucky writing books, but I'm not my favorite thing. I don't think writing books does a lot for you unless, in other words, there are a lot of people that write books that don't get speaking engagements and people that don't write books that get speaking engagements. So, I've written written 1 book and co-authored a book in all these years. I got lucky with the books, but anyway, so that's the truth about that.
I'm going to interrupt. What are your books about? What's your book about?
The Real Truth About Success came out in 2010. McGraw-Hill was the publisher. And that book was about taking advantage of your advantages. In other words, that everybody has an advantage. Most people don't really know what the advantage is, but many people won't take advantage of their advantages. We interviewed 5,371 top performers in about 320 specific industries or industry segments and looked at how they took advantage of their advantages. We've got examples in the book. And so, in other words, that it's one thing to have a talent or drive. It's another thing to see where your advantage is in the market. What is your actual advantage? The other thing I'll tell you about why I've been successful is I didn't pick the audience or let the audience pick me. I don't think I've said this more than twice in 30 years, but I'll say it on your show. I was speaking to everybody in the beginning, everybody. And I marketed to everybody and I said, I'm open to everybody. I said, it doesn't matter who you are, I can speak at your conference. And I did that because I've got a marketing background on purpose to say, who will pick me? And over time, certain groups like me better than others. And when I figured out who those groups were, I marketed to them specifically. Cool. So in other words, it was successful because they picked me. I didn't pick them. And then when they picked me, I focused on them. So I do a lot of stuff in construction. I do a lot of stuff in manufacturing. Cool. Do I have a big construction manufacturing background? Not really. Those groups like me. I don't know why they like me. They just like me better than the tech people like me. They like me better than realtors like me.
And I saw that you do stuff on safety too.
I do stuff on safety. I was in a chemical plant explosion just by accident. So I got blown up a little bit. That helps.
Blown up a little bit. I like that. Just a little bit.
I was slightly blown up, Steve. Just a tad. I was a tad blown up. But the thing is that, so because of that, because I dug ditches for a living one time in my life and operated a ditch witch, which is a machine that digs ditches, that put me enough experience in that space. I could relate a little bit. But still, that wasn't it. What really was it is of all the events I'm doing, where are the ones that we get the most referrals from? Where are they liking me the best? We figured out that manufacturing and that construction, financial advisory, healthcare, education, those groups really liked me a lot. So we just focused in those areas. So that's really the real key to success.
Yeah.
The problem a lot of speakers have, hey, I want to talk to tech people. Maybe they don't want you.
Yeah.
Maybe and maybe your personality is not a fit for that particular group. That is the truth. That I don't know. I don't necessarily think that my personality is a fit for some of the groups that I speak to, but they do. So I'm doing it all the time.
That's half of it right there, but they do. I like it.
But
And
they do.
that's key because so many times we've got a list of people, organizations and associations that we send out to my speaking people,
Right.
my clients, and say, go ahead and apply to these places. And I say, but don't apply to all of them because they're not all going to fit you. Now, obviously, it's back to what you just said, which is they think because I know I do this, I should apply to these places, right? And it may not be that at all. So you have to
Well,
find out.
I say apply to everybody and see where they like you. And when you figure out where they like you, just put all your effort in that.
Ooh, there's a cool one. I like that.
That's what happened to me. I applied to everybody. Well, who loves me? Where am I getting the most referrals from? Where do people think I'm great? And I just market to that. That's the truth.
That's one of the keys, though, is I think so many times I just had somebody on a podcast a while ago, and they said they applied to 100 people, 100 companies, and didn't get anything. And boy, they're frustrated and struggling. And I went, so tell me your procedure. I said, you send an email out to them saying, hey, I would like to present at your organization's meeting or your, whatever convention. And they went, yeah. I said, okay, so you send out 100. They went, yeah. I said, and what was your follow-up? And they went, what do you mean? I went, well, you have to, I said, it's like any sales thing. You got to apply 10 times before somebody's going to even acknowledge that you wrote to them, right?
That's true. And I'll tell you what I don't say much. I'll tell you what I did in the beginning. I know that you interview people all the time and nobody wants to tell you how they did it. They'll tell you what they're doing, like I just did. They'll tell you what's working, and they'll tell you the magic moment when like I said, I figure it out. I went to everybody and then who loves me and all that. But how did I really start this business? I was pro stand-up. I'd done stand-up, but stand-up is comedy clubs.
Yep.
There were events that were outside of comedy clubs that were corporate events and all that. I did some of that, and I saw that I could make a lot of money, more money doing that. So that's true, and I did some of that. But there was a list in 1995 of local events all over the city of Houston. And it's just a list that says, here's the whatever club and the Kiwanis Club and whoever these stupid, these interesting, maybe not so important to me now clubs. They're not stupid. So here's a tip. Don't call people stupid. So the thing is that.
Good tip.
Yeah, it's a really good tip. So the thing is I just, I sent a fax back then.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I contacted them on the wireless. I sent pigeons a long time ago. So what I did was I reached out and I just called on the phone sometimes and said, hey, you're the local association, whoever. So how do you pick your speakers? How do you decide who's going to be a speaker? And they would tell me how they did it. And I would say, okay, well, here's my information. I don't know if I'm doing it your way, but here's what I do. I'm a pro stand-up who was a successful Fortune 500 business person. And so I can guarantee you I'm just funnier than the last guy you had. And I actually worked as a manager and managed humans. I'm not talking about leadership because I thought it was a cool idea. I did it. And I made some mistakes, by the way, and I'll tell you about those too. So that's kind of what I did. But I made a bunch of phone calls every day, like 50 phone calls every day for 2 or 3 years. And what happened is you do that kind of effort, you get some results. So what I did is I tried real hard. And I tried real
real hard. Yeah. I think that's critical for the people listening is that you guys just heard one of the premier speakers of today's speaking world. There's a lot of people who say, I belong to this organization or I belong to that organization and we're the professionals in this. But they don't all make money. They don't all make a profit. They certainly don't make a living doing it. And Garrison has been doing this 30 years as a full-time living. And when he's saying he started off and he made 50 phone calls a day, how many are you making? How many emails are you sending? What's your follow-up like? And how do you hope to get those positions if you're not doing that kind of work? See, a lot of people think I'll just send an email out and somebody's going to hire me for $5,000-$10,000.
And I know that nobody wants to talk about numbers. But I think I will today because I realize it's important. I went from making minus $19,000 a year. Like it was costing me $19K to be a speaker, to, I forget what the year was, maybe it was 2007, $850,000 in 2007. Big money then, right?
Yeah.
850K.
Big money.
But
Wait. $850,000 in 2007 was big money then.
Right. I'm just saying, it was big money then. So big money, it's good money. Well, my point is, and I'm not telling you that to impress you. Okay, clearly I'm trying to impress you. But besides me trying to impress you, my point is that I only got to that number because I was really trying really hard. I was doing every single thing that you could possibly do. We were sending information out to bureaus back when you mailed a bureau a VHS. We were talking to those people. I hired somebody to work for me and help me. I realized that I needed somebody that was going to be every day selling me 8 hours a day, every day, 5 days a week, while I did the other things I needed to do, like be on the road and speak or do whatever marketing thing I was doing. So I got help early on. I learned that. I was willing to take half the money I was making, give it to somebody else to build up the organization to do that. And I talked to people and I called people. And when I was at an event, I didn't focus so much on growing my name. I didn't do that. Maybe I should have done more of that. I focused on getting the next gig. I focused on building the business, and then the money I made, I put it in the business. Yeah, I put the money back, and I would put the money back in the business.
Yeah.
And by 2010 or 11, I had 9 employees, and we were just blowing and going like crazy, to the point to where I was having to call bureaus and give them the leads. We had more leads. I was giving 10 leads a week away to the speakers bureaus. Now, why did I give the speakers bureaus? Why didn't I give it to other speakers? No offense, other speakers couldn't bring me 50 gigs. The bureaus could. Yeah, I gave the gigs to the people that could bring me the gigs. I gave the gig to that bureau agent.
Yeah.
Who then gave me gigs back.
Yep.
Nothing against working with other speakers, but other speakers couldn't help me enough in my business. Not like a bureau agent does. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
what's interesting like that, Garrison, is a couple 3 years ago I had somebody, and I was interviewing them for the podcast, and she ran a bureau, and she said, frankly, Steve, you couldn't qualify as one of my clients. And I went, wait, what? And she said, you don't charge enough money. She said, my least expensive speaker is $15,000. My most expensive is $75,000. So you couldn't qualify for me to represent you. And I was like, I had no idea that there were, those kinds of bureaus out there that worked with the elites, and the rest of us are just like sucking wind, and you're like, wow, I thought $10,000 was a lot.
Well, let me tell you, this is a real thing. And it happened. I remember, because that's when my fee accelerated. Early on, I got with a bureau that said, hey, you got to charge a certain amount of money. So we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and
it changed everything. I probably doubled my events by raising my fee at that point.
Isn't that amazing? Doubled your events by raising your fee.
Yeah,
and that's true to, and now let's qualify. For the people who are out there just learning how to be great speakers or just getting into the, don't go out and double your fee unless you're charging $1,000 or something.
No. Let me be more real than that about that. Fees are all over the place.
Oh yeah.
There's not a lot under 5, 6K. That's just not a lot, and it's all hard and weird and strange. When somebody comes to you with 2K, get ready. It's getting ready to get weird. It's going to be weird. So, but that's just weird. But the thing about it is, so between 5 and 15, there's just tons and tons of business out there. Between 10 and 20, there's tons and tons of business out there. There really is. There's not a whole bunch at 4. There's not a whole bunch at, 5 really. There's not. So that's the truth. So, but it's out there. And again, if you haven't had a lot of speaking engagements, you got to have stage time. There's a lot of people out there, their whole problem is they don't have any stage time. I guess they've spent a lot of time in front of the mirror getting ready to speak, but that's not stage time. You got to,
a lot of people think, Garrison, a lot of people think I'm doing a webinar or I'm doing a Zoom meeting. Yeah. I'm doing a Zoom thing, and they think that is stage time.
Right. It's not. You got to walk into a room with an audience who doesn't know who you are and talk to them. When you do that, that's stage time. That makes you better. And the thing is about you're not ever going to get better unless you're actually speaking. Only speaking makes you better at speaking. Nothing makes you better at speaking except for speaking. You can get better information, and that maybe you're bringing more whatever, but it doesn't make you better in front of the audience. The other thing is this. You got to like it. I have seen speakers that before that I thought the reason they were in the room is they like shaking all the hands. They like the prestige. They like being revered. They like something, but they didn't like being on stage so much. And this is a business where if you really like doing it, you get better and better, more opportunities. I think if you don't like doing it, I don't know. I think I do this because I like doing it, because I want to be in front of an audience. That's why I do it. I like doing it. I'm not doing it because I enjoy shaking 150 people's hands. That's not what that actually, that's kind of a bad idea. You know what I mean? Like I've caught everything.
Oh, excuse me, hot chew. Can I shake your hand, right?
Walked out of a ballroom in Las Vegas 10 years ago, and a lady, Mr. Wynn, I just want to tell you very much, I really enjoyed your speech. And she shook my hand, and she goes, and I've got bronchitis. Really? Oh. Really, ma'am? Really? Anyway, so then I had bronchitis for all of that year. Anyway.
Yeah, man.
But so I do think that you have to like the speaking part. I think it's really, really important. I'm surprised sometimes when I've talked to some, especially people who are they're really experts who just love the research. They love something else besides the speaking. I think it's very difficult to get good at something that you're not crazy about.
Yeah, my wife actually says to me all the time, we've been married about 10 years, a little plus, and she says, I love it when you go to speak because you just light up. That's when I light up, right? You know, and that says, hey, he loves being on stage. Now, everybody goes, so you love being the center of attention. I go, that's not it. It's being able to share, being able to spark somebody else's imagination or interest, you know, and that's what it's all about, is that you love engaging, right?
Right. Well, my girlfriend, sometimes she just says, I think you're keynoting me now. You should go back on the road. That's what she said. That's a totally different. But that's why I say, stay married, by the way. Now, I want to say that if my ex-wife is listening, my ex-wife and I have a very good relationship, but we had a very happy marriage and a very happy divorce. As a matter of fact, in my divorce, only the lawyers were upset. Only the lawyers.
Really? Because they didn't get their cut, huh?
We had a deal. We walked in with a deal. So, but I think that it really is important. And, you know, and like you said, I think that looking at what you're doing, I think watching yourself on video, one thing I learned by doing that was what I was doing with my hands. I remember originally, because I was using a mic as a stand-up, you got a mic all the time. So when I went away from the mic, my hands did this. I was pushing the audience, hey guys, away, which doesn't really work very well. So I had to kind of like, what am I doing with my hands? So I had to learn a few things. You can't just do this.
Matter of fact, I just had a new trainee, and she sent me her first 5-minute video, and she was doing this, right? She was doing that wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when in your real conversations have you ever done that hand movement in a real conversation? She goes,
yeah, right.
I don't know. I went, never. You've never talked to somebody and said, hey, let me talk to you. Like, no, it was. So you gotta learn to be natural, and you gotta learn to interact with your body, and that's what Garrison's all about.
That's true, as being as natural as you can. I don't know, like I was never that conscious of everything I was doing, but I was conscious of my hands. I needed to take my hands and turn them this way so I could do this. I just can't do that.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing. But I just kind of got up there and just did it. Having a background in stand-up helped a lot, but stand-up didn't transfer to speaking really at all. Because you know, when you're doing a comedy show, the goal is every 20 seconds you get a house laugh and the club owner brings you back. If you don't, they don't. That's all there is. Nothing against stand-up. That's all there is to stand-up. When you're speaking, you know, your desire to help people get from one place to another and trying to give people something they can go out and immediately apply. I mean, I'm not the guy from the 30,000 foot view What can you do next week to be more influential? What can you do next week to build a better culture? What can you do tomorrow to be a better leader? So I try to give people something they can immediately apply, not the overall, I'm
Yeah.
not down from the mountain with the tablets, so to
That's
speak.
right. Do this now, or look at this, how this. Yeah, I like that. That's really good advice.
What can I do next week? But I also talk about I'm never the hero of my own story. So I don't say great things about myself. Now I know people who do that. If you climbed a mountain, or if you're blind and you got some kind of handicap you've overcome, that's great. I don't have any of that. I didn't overcome anything. So except myself.
Yeah, my mental
So,
handicap has
my,
prevented me from doing a lot. Yeah.
I'm overcoming my own ego. It's the best I can do.
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
so the thing is that because of that, I'm just not the hero of the story. Now I'll tell you how I ran off the top guy in the country. I'll tell you, I volunteer my mistakes. I believe the mistakes I've made are pretty valuable. But I think that being a hero of your own story only works if the story has a certain level of power.
That's right.
I've had people who say that my topic is motivation. I don't think anybody's topic is motivation. The only way your topic is motivation, you had to overcome some gigantic situation that you had to propel yourself through. And there are very few of those stories like that.
Yeah.
So I always tell a speaker, there's only 5 things they pay you for. They pay you for leadership, and they pay you for sales. They pay you for customer service, not so much anymore, but they pay you for customer service.
Which they should pay now for a lot more
Right.
because what we're going
Right.
through.
Right, but they don't. So that's customer service is not the strongest market. They pay you for risk management or helping people to avoid problems, avoid difficult areas. It could be safety, it could be just risk management in general. And they pay you to work well with difficult groups or difficult people, or if they pay you to work with a group that's different than you. That may be change, going through change, maybe succession planning, whatever. But outside of those 5, they're not writing a ton of checks for speakers. And a lot of speakers have invented their own topic that nobody wants. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've been to NSA and talked to this guy. He was very smart and very talented. And he told me what he talks about. And I'm like, well, besides you, who wants that? How about nobody? That's really cool.
That's right. Besides you, I had a lady a few years ago, and she said, I want you to help me become a successful speaker. And I said, great. She said, I wrote a book and I want to talk about that. I went, great, let's talk about that. And she sent me a copy of the book, and I went, yeah, it was a really boring book. I didn't tell her that, of course, but I was like, okay, personal story, right? 100 pages long. And I said, okay, so let's start off by what do you want to accomplish in your talk? She said, well, I want to share my story. I went, but what do you want to, how do you want to affect people? She said, I want them to see my story. And everything was about her. So I tried to get her to tell the story so that it involved other people, like instead of, hey, I went to the grocery store, it said, have you ever gone to the grocery store? You know how that works, right? And so when I started it, so like for 3 weeks, I kept sending her back stuff going, you got to word it like this. And she came back to me one time and said, I don't want to do that. It's my story and I want to talk about me. And I went, but nobody wants to hear about you. Have you not gotten that from me yet? But that's what I want. And I went, we're not going to be able to work together because I'm looking for something.
That's my favorite all-time speaker story, Steve. That's a great story. Wait a second. No. I want to talk about me. Enough about me. What do you think of me? Yeah. That's great. That's so great. Fabulous. Yeah. And again, people get to do that. That's who you get to be. No one's writing checks for that. That's the thing. There's a lot of interesting things that no one writes checks for. There's a lot of really important things that are great and really important that no one writes checks for. So if you're going to earn a living, I didn't want to be a starving artist. I'm just not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a for-profit artist. I want to do this for a living. I didn't want to do this on the side. And it is what it is. There are just many things that are very important, and they may be important to the world and to you and to people that you know, but the National Association of whoever or Coca-Cola or Caterpillar don't write checks for that.
That's right.
And I wish that message was a bigger message at NSA. I've talked to people who've been going to NSA for 20 years, and their whole problem is they've created an idea in their head that it's like this. It's like it's like wanting to speak to somebody, but you require them to learn your language first. No, you got to speak their language.
Yeah, absolutely. Every time. And that's
Yeah.
exactly right. Again, when you said National Speakers Association, it was something like 70% of the National Speakers Association earns less than $40,000 from speaking a year.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, wow, how can that be? They go to these things so they can learn how to be better speakers and better presenters and get jobs, I thought. But that's not how it works.
No, but I got in trouble saying that. I got in trouble doing some things with them for saying exactly that. They were very unhappy with me.
Yeah.
I think
I was a member there about
some,
15 years ago, and I said the same. I asked a couple questions, and I went, I thought these meetings were, and they went, well, you should just come to the meetings and you'll learn. And I went, but I thought you were, and then they wanted to charge you extra for something else. And I went, but I know all that. I came to learn how to get more speaking gigs. And they went, well, nobody's going to give you their speaking gigs. I went, okay.
I should have never done this, but I literally years ago, I won't say where, maybe Orlando, but wherever it was. But what I said was, I said for the 27 of us that earn a living, and then I proceeded to, yeah. So, but maybe that's better than it was. I got to, my problem with NSA, I got to NSA already earning a living as a speaker. I think had I gotten to NSA before that, I would have been received better. I think you're much better received at NSA when you're needing their help than when you come in with some level of success. I just think that was my experience that I had. But I also,
because that's what I got too. That's what I got. I came in and I had 20 years of speaking under my belt, and they were like, well, and you try and ask the questions that you're looking for answers to, and they didn't have those. Yeah.
Right. But in reality, it can be difficult to teach somebody something who already has a successful method. I talked to a guy that was a baseball coach for junior league, like whatever 13 to 15-year-olds. And he said the worst problem he had was trying to teach a kid who already knew how to hit. Cool. So if he had some level of success but needed to go to the next level, that was more difficult from the kid who couldn't hit. Interesting.
Yeah,
I think in the defense of NSA, I kind of get it. It may not be now. Maybe things have changed. I know that things have changed. I did have a specific problem because I had a couple of speakers there that we shared a videographer, and they were using my stuff, and I had a real problem with that. They were using jokes I had done in stand-up years earlier. They were telling my stories, and that bothered me immensely. So I didn't react well to that. I probably, in hindsight, I could have handled things better than I did, like in 2007. I could have probably had a better conversation than I had with those people at that point. So I just didn't like it was just weird. One guy was actually using my body language. Oh, you're telling my story, he's doing an impression of me. That's weird as hell. I think that's really weird.
That is weird.
But that's my personal story. I know people who went to NSA and it changed their lives and changed their careers, and they've become very successful. So NSA has helped people become very successful. So I don't want to confuse my problems with
and like you say, each organization has a path. I'm trying to remember the one where they just want you to come up and speak, and they don't, I forget what it's called, but they don't teach people how to make money speaking. They just teach you how to overcome your fear of speaking when you're novice at that. And they're very good at teaching that. But then, like a couple of them have gotten onto my speaker talks thing. And I always give them, I say, I'll give you 6 weeks worth of speaker training before you get on stage to get your video recorded. And most of them say, I already know how. And I go, okay, it's like that baseball analogy. And I listen to them, and they have a completely boring and methodical way of giving that information. And I go, that's not going to get you a speaking job. I said, I know you learned that way, but you're going to have to tear that apart and come back together. And but they have taught people how to get over that first hump, and that's important.
Well, that's why I think the value of someone like you, someone who actually, has experience making speakers better. That's what you know how to do. And that they're much far better off going to you and saying, here I am. I think that an organization like that, nothing against the National Speakers Association, they might be better going to you first. And then maybe you can, I don't really know, exactly, how that would work 100%. But I know that going to someone like you who is looking specifically at their situation one-on-one, I think that is gigantic help, a little bit more than showing up and walking into a situation and trying to figure out what part of this do you take.
Yeah.
And having someone say what you said, which is, hey, the story doesn't hold the attention that well. There's a little bit of a boredom factor to it. And, but I know that you can be better and I can help you. I think that's extraordinarily valuable.
Great.
Really, it is, Steve. I think that's
and I hate to wrap it up on that, but as long as you're talking about me.
Yeah. Let's talk about Steve.
Garrison, this has been great. We've been on about 40 minutes, and I told you I'd keep you 20 to 25. And boy, the information has been phenomenal, and everybody's going to love this episode. So I sure appreciate you. And if we can have you on again, that'd be great. So,
I'd love to. I really enjoyed this. I like you. I like working with you. And I did mean what I said for anybody watching this. Talk to somebody who's actually earned a living as a speaker. Talk to somebody who is somebody who's earned a living as a speaker and willing to coach you. If you can find somebody who's willing to do those two things, I think that's where you're going to get the most success right out of the gate. I think that's what I think. So
that's fabulous. And Garrison, we appreciate you being on. I'm Steve Zapato. You guys, if you would do me a favor and click that subscribe button for the Know, Like, and Trust podcast, I sure would appreciate it. And we have the best presenters on, the experts on, who can help you get better in everything that you're doing. Garrison, I sure appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.